Hello, guys. Now, listen, I'm glad to have you guys here. I'm going to get to the point. I've been thinking about something all afternoon. I was thinking about it when I had dinner this afternoon. I was thinking about it. My mind was mulling it over, and the wheels were spinning in there. And I was thinking about something. What I was thinking about is the rich and how that something like 60 people in the world right now own 50% of the world's wealth. Now, this is interesting, but I want to make a few points here about this. Right now, they own 50% of the world's wealth. You have to understand something about these people that own 50% of the world's wealth. They're not just interested in wealth itself. They are interested in control and power as well as wealth. And they're very greedy too. If they have 50% of the world's wealth right now, they're not satisfied until they have 100% of the world's wealth. And they will do anything to move ahead just 1%. So at their 50% point they have right now, they would do anything to have 51% of the world's wealth or 52% of the world's wealth. Okay, now let's establish that kind of as a fact in what they're like. They're very greedy, and that's how they got wealthy to begin with, is being very greedy, being very miserly. Rich people, sometimes if you do a job for them, they won't tip you, they won't pay you as good as poor people. And they get all that money, more money than they could ever spend. It gets to be almost like a game with them to try to get richer and richer and richer. So I got thinking about them this afternoon, and I got thinking about cryptocurrencies. Let's just think about this for a minute and consider some facts. In the cryptocurrency world, could the rich people out there be buying cryptocurrencies in a way that it doesn't appear like they're accumulating? And also, you got to understand, coins like Bitcoin were pre-mined. The accounting for how many Bitcoins is out there and all the other cryptocurrencies as well is very inexact, to say the least, right? But I've done a bit of research on it, and as near as I can figure, these people who own 50% of the world's wealth have also accumulated some at least 65% of the cryptocurrencies they own. And they've accumulated these, they've often used proxies. And they also have them in secret hidden wallets and stuff. And they've been accumulating going all the way back to 2009. They've been accumulating. They're not like you and me. They've been slowly absorbing and sucking up all of the world's cryptocurrencies. Think about a few things here. First off, right now with the fiat monetary system, these people that own 50% of the world's wealth, they don't have full control right now of the money. Physical gold, physical silver, they can't see exactly who has it or where it's moving. Now also, let's think for a minute about cash. Cash is probably their worst enemy of all. It gives them a lack of control. They can't see it. They can't see it in the system. It's moving around in the system, and it's flowing from one person's hands to another, and they can't see where it's going. But now let's think about cryptocurrencies. How cryptocurrencies, even right now, with the freedom we have with these wallets that have been, what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of like Linux. You know, you're allowed to download it, and it's free. It's like the Linux operating system is free. There's a name for that. I'm trying to think of it. It's on the tip of my tongue. When something is software and it's free for all to use, and that's the way the wallets are right now. And of course, they give you anonymity because you got so many different wallet addresses you can use. There's no restrictions on it. It's kind of right now like the old West in the cryptocurrencies right now. So it's kind of simulating fiat in a way. Fiat is that way right now. I mean, nobody sees where your dollars are going in the system. Well, cryptocurrencies is sort of that way right now because there's so many different wallet addresses and so many different types of cryptocurrency. It's moving around the system this way and that way and every which way. It's just a confused mess, basically. But the fiat currencies, when they're in their cash form, they're a mess too. You don't know where the money's moving in the system, and they can't see where it's moving. So we've established that fact. But there is a big difference. That tangled mess, picture it in your mind, kind of like a big tangle of ropes. So you got the fiat over here, and it's like a big tangle of rope, all tangled up. Say it's fishing line, and it's all tangled full of knots, and it's got fish hooks stuck in it everywhere and everything, and it's just a mess, right? And you got that's the fiat system over here with cash. And then you got the cryptocurrency system over here. And it's sort of similar in the respect that it's all tangled up too, and there's wallet addresses going this way and every which way. I mean, look how hard it was for them to try to track down where the coins went from Mt. Gox. They disappeared into the system, and it's been hard for them to track them down to find out what's going on. But there's a difference between the two, and I'm going to point the difference out right now. Is the cash system is a mess, and there's no way to actually straighten it out so that you know where each dollar's going. But the cryptographic system, with a few small moves and tweaks, little tweaks to it, you can straighten it out so you can see where every transaction's going. All it needs to be is tweaked. That control mechanism is there with the cryptographic currencies, with the blockchain currencies, because the blockchain holds all the information you need to straighten out the mess. Eventually, when they want to straighten out the mess. Now, these are facts. The rich know these facts. The rich know that they're probably holding at least 65% of the cryptocurrencies right now, right? They also know that they can straighten it out later so that they can see where every transaction is going. Everything you spend. If you go buy a piece of bubble gum, they'll know what time of day you bought it. They'll know where you bought it. They'll know. They'll assign it to your wallet address and everything else, and they'll have you. They'll have exactly what they want, which is control. But now let's think about something else. Do you remember what I said at the start of this conversation? How that the rich would do anything to gain 1% more of wealth. And right now they hold 50% of the world's wealth. And they would jump through a flaming hoop of fire to move from 50 to 51% of the world's wealth. Even though they got more money than they could possibly spend in 10 lifetimes. That doesn't matter. Now, I'll tell you a little story about them. There was a miserly rich woman who actually owned the Waldorf Astoria Hotel. She's ultimately rich. Her name was Hetty Green. Her son, she wouldn't spend any money. Did you know she owned the Waldorf Astoria Hotel, and across the road was a railway tracks there where all the rail trains come in and everything. She actually grabbed a hold of an old piano crate. Now, in the old days, they used to make piano crates out of wood, and they were about 6 or 7 feet long, about maybe 8 feet wide, and they were about like 5 feet tall. They're a big crate. I made out of wood. She grabbed one off of one of the old trains or whatever at the train station. And she lived there. She lived inside that box. Guess how much money she had? She had, now this was way back, like hundreds of years ago. You know, I mean, this is a long time ago, like, you know, way back when. She had, back then, when a dollar was worth a dollar, now a dollar's worth 3 cents compared to what it was worth when she had $100 million. Her son needed an operation. The operation cost, I think it was $500, if I remember correctly. She wouldn't pay for his operation. She thought it was too expensive. He lost his leg. He was always angry about the fact that he lost his leg because his mother wouldn't pay for the operation. His mother owned the Waldorf Astoria Hotel. She'd go over to the hotel and she'd pick up the little scraps, you know, little tiny bars of soap after about this big, after you've used them all day and you washed yourself with them all day and the bar of soap gets about this big. She'd collect those little bars of soap and smush them together with her hands to make a bigger bar, and that's what she used for her soap. She would go, back in those days, you could get skim milk for free. You go to the dairy, they used to skim the cream off and and they used to sell the whole milk, and nobody wanted skim milk, and they used to give it away for free or dump it into the ditch or whatever back in those days. This is back in the days when they used to have glass bottles that the milk would come in, and there would be a little stopper in the top of the glass bottle. She would actually quite literally go down and she would get the free skim milk, and that's all she'd drink. Just complete miserly. But she was one of the ultra rich of her day. She was the 1%ers. She was a 1%er. So you see what they're like. They don't want to spend a penny, but they want to get richer and richer. It's almost like a game to them that they can't quit playing. It's like Monopoly, for crying out loud. So we got these guys out there. There's about 50 of them in the world right now that own 50% of the world's wealth. They would do anything for 51%, but not only that, they'd do anything to gain this control mechanism. Okay, so we got these facts lined up. I'm lining up these facts in my mind. And I'm thinking to myself, if you were one of these rich, ultra-rich guys, and you said that you could move up from what you're holding now, which is 50% of the world's wealth, you could gain 15 or maybe 20% more of the world's wealth in one fell swoop. And at the same time, you could gain the type of control so that you could see where every piece of bubble gum that was bought or purchased by all of us, what they consider to be the rabble or the undesirables, right? If you could see where we were spending our money, then you could tax the hell out of us. Now let's think about this for a minute. Cryptocurrency would give them that ability to see where every penny is spent. Right now there's a lot of cash floating around the system, and they hate it. We already know that they want to get rid of cash, the rich, right? This would tie all the world's money into an internet network that they could store very easily on their computers. I mean, look, me, if I wanted to, I could store the entire record of everything that's ever been spent on Bitcoin on my computer. All I have to do is go get the core wallet for Bitcoin, put it on my computer, and it'll automatically download the blockchain onto my computer. It takes, I think it's something like 60 gigabytes or something like that. And it'll actually store that entire record of every transaction that's ever been made with Bitcoin on my computer. The next job would just be to sort out those transactions. Figure out where they're going and stuff. And they got you. Now see, cash, you can't do that. Cash goes every which way, this way and that way, and every which way. It changes hands 10 times a day. I'll tell you a little story. When I was younger, my mother, she got this $5 bill. This is when we lived down in the States, you know. She got this $5 bill, and it had a marking on it or something, you know. So she went into town, and she spent it. That bill got spent about 4 or 5 times that day and come back around to her. Seriously. And you could not see those other 5 transactions and stuff. Or 6, it might have been 10, I don't know. Quite a few transactions, but it went around in a circle, and it come back around to her at the end of the day. And she got it in change. The same $5 bill, and it was quite a big city, where it was like a city of 100,000 people, where she spent it. and it come back around to her. That bill might have got, depending on the velocity of money, it could have got spent 10 times, 15 times, 30 times, maybe 100 times in that one day. It might have changed hands. And all those transactions, they can't see any of them. But now I can download every transaction ever been made in Bitcoin onto my computer. This is power. So what do we got here? First off, they'd be able to move up from 50% of the world's wealth to probably 65 or 70% of the world's wealth. Who knows? By using proxies to purchase Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies right now, they could hide the fact that they're accumulating much more than what they really are, because when you go out and check who owns what, they might be, half of them might be proxies buying for the rich people. Okay, so they might have as much, goodness knows, they might have as much as 70% by using proxies of the cryptocurrencies right now. So they'd think to themselves instantaneously, they own 50% of the world's wealth right now. If we were to transfer the value of everything over into cryptocurrencies, we could move from 50, this is what they would think. We can move from 50% of the world's wealth in one fell swoop to 65, 70. Gosh knows if they really purchased correctly in the next little while, maybe even 80% of the world's wealth. So they would gain, and they'd also gain ultimate control over everything that's spent in the entire world in one fell swoop. And they would also be able to promote their agenda. Agenda 21 or whatever it's called. You know, I think it's Agenda 21, where the world's wealthiest individuals, most of them are all globalists. Now, what happens if we transfer from an old monetary system over into a new shiny new cryptographic monetary system quite suddenly? What happens? Massive confusion. Well, they don't care. They've got their underground bunkers ready and everything else. Massive confusion for us would probably mean that a lot of people could die. I don't know whether they have a simple way of putting it. But if they create, especially in places like in the third world and stuff, if we switch over suddenly, if we switch over, say, in a year or 2 years from a fiat monetary system over to a cryptographic monetary system, that massive confusion that would erupt in the world would send the whole world into a Venezuela. How many people have suffered and died in Venezuela already now because of because of the Maduro government? But this would be worldwide. This would be a worldwide Venezuela. How many people would suffer and die? Probably a lot. Well, every single person that suffers and dies fits in with their globalist agenda. Just go look at the Georgia Guidestones. So this all makes sense, put in this perspective. It all makes sense, not for us. It all makes sense for them. Plus, there's another bonus. They also would be accumulating right now gold and silver. And they figure to themselves, hey, you know what? We're accumulating the big quantities. Like J.P. Morgan right now, his silver hoard that he's got might be more or less a proxy for a lot of these rich people. He's a proxy. So that's their accumulation of gold and silver. And they probably plan on accumulating a lot more before it runs out, before there's not enough left for everybody else. And they're not worried about the little guy out there who might put away 100 ounces of silver. They ain't worried about him. As long as they've got their 750 million ounces. Or their billion ounces. And they don't care about the guy out there that's got 0.05 bitcoins. They don't care about him. As long as they've got their 12 million of them or whatever. And the same with all the other cryptocurrencies. They're accumulating big. We're accumulating tiny, tiny, tiny. And there's only a few of us that are accumulating. Comparatively speaking, like I say, if they've got 65 or 70% of the cryptocurrencies, And if all the wealth transfers over into the cryptocurrencies, means they'd have 65 or 70% of the wealth in the world. We would still own, the people like us would still own 20 or 30% of the world's wealth. But right now we own 50%. So this would be a grab. They'd be grabbing 15 or 20% of what we got left. And in one fell swoop, cutting off all cash. Because if this hyperinflation comes, cash will be worthless. It's just all starting to make sense to me. The whole package deal. You know? And I'm starting to think to myself, the wheels are starting to spin inside my head, and I'm starting to think to myself, hey, you know what? It really makes a lot of sense for them to bring this in. Because it fits right in with what they want. And what about us? Well, we would all have to weather through what's going to happen, which would be amazing, astounding, is any way I can say it. So I've been watching Bitcoin the last few days, and I'll tell you what I see. I see the pattern developing all the way down to bottoms that it's made, and I think Bitcoin is probably getting ready to start to turn, start to change direction again. We've seen an enormous top, $20,000 the cryptocurrency went up to. And now it's come back down to around 5,900 was the bottom. And now it's settled back into around 6,500. But it's been creeping up since 6,100, up to about 6,500 or 6,600 now. And in a wavy pattern that seems to me like it's starting to gain some energy again, starting to gain a little bit of traction again. I'm thinking to myself it could take off pretty soon. Again, take off again. I kind of predicted that. I think a while back, I'll tell you what I predicted, and this was a few months back. I predicted that Bitcoin would, during the first stage of the financial crisis that's going to start very soon, which is going to be very similar to the 2008 financial crisis. Right now, the stock market's up over 26,000. I predicted that when the stock market turns down, that the first knee-jerk reaction is going to be that the cryptocurrency prices are going to go up. Until the stock market goes below 20,000, and then I think the cryptocurrency is going to fall for a very short period of time. And this is what I've been predicting for quite a long time. It's going to fall, the price is going to fall for a very short period of time after the stock market drops below 20,000. And when the stock market drops below 20,000, it's going to fall very quickly then, all the way down to somewhere around 15,000 or somewhere around that, or maybe a bit below 15,000. And then what's going to happen is the Fed is going to change their monetary policy, and the stock market's going to roar back up again. When that stock market roars back up, so is cryptocurrency. And it's not going to be a fake out. It's going to be the real thing. It's going to be the real deal. The cryptocurrency, when the stock market roars back up and the Fed has changed monetary policy, the cryptocurrency is going to be on its way to the moon, quite literally the moon. And at a certain point, when the cryptocurrency is on its way to the moon, it's going to start to everyone, because the dollar at that point is going to be losing value very rapidly. Everybody and their dog is going to start to invest in cryptocurrency to try to get out of the dying fiat monetary system. And this is where we're going to start to get the problems, because the world is set up not for cryptocurrency. Very few people actually use cryptocurrency on a daily basis right now, because everybody's set up to take fiat. All businesses are all set up. Everybody's set up. There's just a few places that'll take cryptocurrencies. But most people are set up to take fiat. And they're going to have to make a sudden transition over, because all the world's wealth is going to make that transfer over, and the fiat currency is going to be worth less and less. As people dump their dollars, it basically works like this. Pretend you're a guy and you want to, what happens when a guy buys Bitcoin, basically? And why does he buy Bitcoin? Well, the first thing is when Bitcoin starts to roar back alive again, starts to go up, people are going to start to see it at some point as a better investment than all of the other investments they've been making up till now. And say there's a guy, say his name's Bill, and he's got a neighbor next door named John. And John invested in cryptocurrency maybe a few years ago, right? And John, it comes over to Bill every day and he says, hey, you know what? I'm doing great. My cryptocurrency investments have went to the moon. And they get talking, and after a while he converts the other guy. And then they're both on board with cryptocurrencies, and everybody starts to get involved. And as this happens, when they make a purchase of Bitcoin, say the guy just gets involved with Bitcoin, and he's a new enthusiast. He's got a lot of enthusiasm. He goes out and buys his first coins. He gets his first wallet set up and everything else, right? He's an enthusiast. What happens? Say he puts $1,000 in as his first initial investment into Bitcoin. What happens to that $1,000 is he buys the coin. That money just went to the person that just sold him the coin, possibly a miner. Now, because the system is set up as Bitcoin as an investment, and he's just bought that Bitcoin, he ain't going to sell it. He's bought it for an investment. Where did he get the money? Well, I'll answer that question. He went to the bank and he got the money out of the bank. Well, what was that money doing before he got it out of the bank? That money was just sitting there with a velocity of 0 in the bank. He's went to the bank, he's got the money out, he paid for the cryptocurrency. Now that money changes hands and it's in the hands of the guy that just got it, the $1,000. What's he going to do with the money? Most likely he's going to spend some of it because it's easy to spend. You can spend it anywhere. It's fiat. But the Bitcoin that he sold to the other guy is for an investment. It's going to start to take the position that the fiat was taking before it was pulled out of the bank as an investment. It's got a velocity of 0 then, just like the fiat had a velocity of 0. So what Bitcoin's essentially done is it's changed the velocity of money of the fiat and made the fiat run faster. And it's slowed the Bitcoin down because now that Bitcoin he's bought has been taken off the market and there's less Bitcoin floating around in the system to create velocity of money for Bitcoin. So what's basically happening in a layman's terms is Bitcoin is deflating and the value is going up while the fiat currencies are inflating and the value is going down of what the purchasing power. And that's why these people are HODLing, because they see this happening and they want to get on board as a Bitcoin as an investment. This whole thing could just start to get out of hand completely at a certain point. Like there's a point where you cross over the line where Bitcoin starts to absorb all of the fiat, and the fiat starts to move faster and faster and faster. In other words, it's slippery slide to hell, goes faster and faster and faster. And the cryptocurrencies become worth more and more and more and more and more, and everybody starts to want to get on board in the end, and greed fuels it. And once it hits a certain point, it's just like the same way as a fire inside a house. You know, firefighters have something that's very dangerous for firefighters. What happens is the smoke inside the house builds up as a gas. And the firefighter will go inside to rescue somebody or something, and that gas will suddenly ignite and do a flash. It hits a point where the smoke actually becomes combustible as a gas, and it roars through the house. And firefighters have died because of this. But this is almost like a chain reaction at a certain point where the cryptocurrencies get so big and so powerful that and the price of them is going up so fast and the fiat is going down so fast that this whole move can happen, this whole transition can happen too fast for the economic system. And this is where the globalists would be a win-win for them, because the transition could happen so fast, it could cause so much disruption that their agendas that they've had in place that they want to fulfill could actually come true. And cryptocurrency could help them with that too. along with gaining them possibly another 15 to 20% of the world's wealth, and give them a control network where they know where we're spending every penny. They would have so much control in the end that the government wouldn't even have to send you out a tax form anymore. The taxes would already be deducted because they'd know how much money you're making before you even send it in. We're talking just like the movie 1984, Orwell, or Orwellian world. But this is kind of like where we're going. Listen, thank you guys for listening. Like and subscribe. We'll catch you in the next show. Bye-bye, guys.